Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. We are the original recyclers. No suits required, just guts and hard work. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
Sitting here, Nashville, Tennessee, Matan Rosenberg, Northern Ohio, scrap.
Yep, Cleveland, Ohio.
Fourth generation. So these are like my best stories. I conned the Genesis guys into letting me podcast in the booth. They were awesome. They got all their equipment in the background, and you're like a fourth generation operator of Genesis equipment, right?
Yep.
I mean, essentially, and probably about any other equipment from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know a lot about you, like that's why we're here, and I want you to give me a little bit of background on you, your company. You said your sister and your brother are here?
Yep, they're at the show. My uncle and grandpa as well.
You have the whole family here.
Yeah, just about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where are you guys staying at?
We're at the Omni over here, so not too far away. So it's convenient.
Nice.
But yeah.
So give me the Cliff Notes version. Tell me about you. Tell me about the company. And I love multi-generation stories. So let's go.
So I'm 19 right now. I guess since we're in the Genesis booth, I'll start off with that. We've been running Genesis shears for about 18 years, for a long time, and I mean we're the kind of company that we care about our equipment, we care about our people, and we care about the way we do business. We try to do everything in the correct way and fair and honest, and that's how we try to do things. So we care a lot about how we process stuff and try to make everything efficient and fast. So we run certain equipment. We're very picky about equipment, and our guys, all our guys take a lot of care in their equipment and stuff. And
so how long you been running equipment?
I've been running skid steer since I was 4. I think shears probably 9 or 10 or 11, and then material handlers probably since I was maybe 16 or something.
Nice. So like when I started, we didn't have a mobile shear, right? We just had cutting torches. Mm-hmm. So like that was like probably like one of my, if I go back and of all the things I've ever done in a scrapyard, probably like one of my favorite things is like run a cutting torch. But that's only because you get to like start with a big ass pile of stuff.
Right. And
you get to whittle on it, and you get to see like, oh, okay, after days in, you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
And now, obviously, having mobile shears, like they take it to the next level where you get to sit in like a nice cab with some air conditioning, and but you still get to see the pile at the end of all the stuff you cut up, right?
Yeah, there's something to be said about cutting steel with a torch, and there's definitely something fun to that. But if you're looking really for productivity, a shear is the way to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you noticed when you move to mobile shears, I mean, the amount of material you can process compared to a torch. I mean, there's certain things that a torch is for, but really the correct tool for the job is a huge thing in scrap,
Yeah.
And that can help out a lot. So I know you have a tire yard, right?
Yeah.
And you use shears to cut tires.
Yeah, well, we shear. So we've traditionally ran LeBounty shears, right? And we just bought our first Genesis, and we were kind of like, well, let's give it a shot and see like what. I'm one of those guys like. I don't really talk shit about anything. I just say like this is what I use.
Right.
Either you do what you want to do, however you want to do it, but this is what I'm doing, right? And if you learn something from it, great. Like, please tell me how you're doing stuff. Right? I think that's kind of the way I like to do it. So I would deal with Matt, and I'm like, hey, I need another shear. I'm ready to kind of test the waters and see, because we run, I think, like 5 mobiles or something like that, 4 or 5 mobiles, and I'm like, I'm gonna see if what the difference is, because I just want to know. I'm like, if somebody tells me it's hot, I'm like, how hot? Like, the type of guy. Right. So we've been using it. I mean, for everything. We use it for tires. We use it for iron. We use it for, everything. And then, because we run the 555, we don't cut a lot of big stuff, right?
Right.
We do a lot of torch cutting. So our experience so far, limited experience, like months, it's been good for us. So yeah.
My dad and my uncles are big equipment guys. They like equipment. They always have since they were kids. So everything we do is big. So we have 2 995 shears, which they're pretty big
That's
shears.
Big ass shear.
Yeah, and they're a lot of fun to operate.
What's the carrier on it?
They're Doosan 530s.
Oh wow. What's the whole setup way? The carrier and the.
I want to say we're Don't quote me on this, but I want to say we're around 125 with everything.
Do you move it around much?
Yeah, so we have a transport bracket on it, and then we have a hydraulic counterweight, so we can drop the counterweight and run, with the shear still on it, and it makes for a pretty serious package, and it's pretty movable, so it allows for some cool off-site stuff every once in a while.
So do you guys have just one facility, or?
Yeah, pretty much. We have a truck shop that we work on our trucks, but as an actual operation.
One processing yard?
Yep.
So the only time you're really moving your shears if you're like going to go
do a demolition or something like that, which we don't do a whole lot of. It's not really our specialty, but like a steel building or some cool things we did, like we pulled 2 ships out of the water. That was pretty sweet.
Oh, that's cool.
We
do some pictures?
Yeah, I do actually. I'll have to show you that later.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. Done some cool building pull downs and things like that. But yeah, anything that we can get our hands on that's different, and that's what we like to do. We like to come up with creative things. But yeah, like I was saying, bigger is better. So like for our material handlers, we run like our main machine is a Centebogen 850 with a magnet.
Oh, wow.
You see most yards run 825s or 835s, and we have 2 850s, and then we have an 825 and an 835.
Like you guys legitimately have big equipment.
Yeah,
like, we run 825s, and we were just over there at the Centebogen booth looking at the difference between, say, an 825 and an 835. Like it's a significant difference. Like it's a significant jump up in just size in general. So then if you go even to an 850, I mean, you're talking about like a beast of a machine.
Yeah, they're very quick. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it goes back to our whole thing is like, we take pride in our operators. Our operators do an amazing job. Matt Code is our main magnet operator, and he's really amazing. Like, I run machines for a long time. He's run them for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he runs a magnet every day, and he does a really good job. So having operators that care about the equipment and really enjoy what they do and take the time. We sort most of our stuff with a magnet, and we try to make it easy for our guys who are in Bobcats picking stuff up, because scrap, it's rough, but this is what makes the world go around, is recycling, and so if we can do as much as we can with a machine, with our big machines, and sort, and then the guys only have to pick up what's not magnetic or machine can't handle it.
So for you, I mean, like I talked a lot to the guys at SOD. Mm-hmm. Like I love talking to guys like young.
I actually talked to them earlier today. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I think our industry. I mean, there's a ton of people that are retiring every day or coming up on those years that have a ton of knowledge, right?
Right.
And so like my biggest thing is trying to find and like encourage the younger generation. You had an advantage, like same like I did. Like I was like born into it.
Right,
I don't know any other.
It's an advantage and a disadvantage, because once you're in scrap, you're never out of scrap.
No,
right?
And I only know one way, right?
Right.
So it's like
right.
this is all I know. Like this is I went to school, came back, and I was back for 3 days, and I went to work. Right. That's what. So, I mean, what do you think the key is going to be for getting like guys, gals that didn't grow up in the business to like take a look at it and say, this is worth, like, it's a good industry, like this is worth taking a look.
I don't have a good answer for that, and I wish I did, because this is a conversation that I've had with my dad a lot, and even more frequently recently, and it's like trying to find younger people, especially when, you look at, if I want to take over the business, or, me and my siblings or younger cousins or whatever, and it's tough, because it's like, it doesn't seem like there's people who are young who want to do these kind of jobs anymore, and there's real careers here, but it's tough. So I don't know. I mean, I hope people kind of realize that what can be made here, and the kind of work we do is really valuable. But it's very tough. I mean, you meet people through word of mouth mostly, and most good people are already taken and they're not moving. So.
Well, you got to recruit them. Like
right.
One thing I will say that. So when I graduated college,
so you
my
did
undergraduate, I went. So I basically, nobody in my family ever went to college, right? Like my aunts, uncles, mom, dad, like nobody. Like nobody's ever stepped foot, right?
What did you go to school for?
I went for business.
Oh, okay.
So I always told my dad, I was like, I'd be either run the torch or run the recycling center.
Right.
And I'd be like, how do I get one of them office jobs, man? He goes, go to college. Right. And I was like, well, you didn't go to college. He goes, you're right. He goes, I did it. But he goes, but if you ever want to work in here, you need to go. At least somebody needs to go, right? And so luckily, like I was a decent enough athlete. I played football in college, and but I always knew, like there was never ever a doubt. Like I always knew what I was going to do. Like even when I went to school, I went to school for business. I really went to school to play football and try and get a degree while I was there. But like on spring break, we were partners with Schnitzer Steel. So I'd go on my spring break, people would party and do a bunch of other shit. I'd go to Schnitzer for a week, like be in the business, like learn what each guy was doing, what they were doing, whether it was the office or outside, just kind of trying to understand the business from a different perspective.
Right.
Because when I came back full time, we were like 22 employees, 26 employees, somewhere in that range. We were still just like our yard in Caldwell, and then like a little feeder yard. And so I like had to go and start recruiting people into the guy I played football with. It's college. He's now HR, insurance, but I started him in the electronics recycling on the scale, manage a yard, and I started just recruiting because I'm like, guys, this is like a viable industry, right?
Right.
But if I wouldn't have been out there trying to recruit them, then I don't know that they would have. So I tell you that because I'm like, it's kind of your job now to go fucking recruit people, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. You try to find anybody and all your friends. The thing is, so you went to school, so you have a little bit more of a base. So I did. Since I always hated school. I did pretty well in it, but I always hated school. And freshman year of high school, I was supposed to be going to high school. You know how they had summer reading?
Yeah.
It was a week before school, and I didn't do any of my summer reading. I had been working all summer, and that wasn't why I didn't do summer reading. I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And there was also a program in Ohio, College Credit Plus. So you could basically take college classes that are the taxes from your public school get transferred to college, so they pay for your college classes.
Nice.
So I was like, well, I could take these college classes instead, and then I don't have to go to my normal high school classes. And the other thing about college classes is you can schedule them for certain days of the week.
Yeah.
So since freshman year of high school, I took college classes either Tuesday and Thursdays and worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday and worked Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Which was really cool because I could do classes, and I had actually a smaller course load than high school, was working, getting college credit and high school credit. And then COVID happened, and then all the classes went online, and I was like, well, I'm already working. I race cars for a hobby. I was already racing cars, and I was like, why don't I just put all my energy towards this and focus on this? So that's what I do now. But I kind of lost some of the connection of younger people, and now I'm mostly around work and a lot of people who I race cars with. But I am trying to, anytime you see people who are younger who I think have potential or any interest.
And sometimes it's just you run into somebody, you see them doing something, or they're even a
quality person is going to excel anywhere they are.
1,000%. You hit the nail on the head, right? And I think I go looking for quality people, and then I'll figure out what I can have. Where could they be a good fit for us? You just look for good people and then figure out how they can fit in. But I think for me, and that's I'm not here to give you a bunch of advice. That's probably the only advice I'll give you today. It's just, man, I was in your position, and that's why I have an appreciation for how hard it is, but how awesome of an opportunity it is.
The opportunity's there, and if you can capitalize on it, So
for you, you've basically been working for your dad ever since you've been able to work, right?
Yep.
Do you guys get along? Is that a contentious relationship sometimes, or is it?
I would say for the most part, me and my dad get along. Me and my dad are pretty good. I would definitely say it's a family business. Between my grandpa and my uncles and my dad and me, and you know how it is. You have a lot of people working, and we get into arguments. But at the end of the day, at the end of every week, we have a big family dinner Friday night with my aunts and uncles and as many family that's in the area, which most of us live pretty close together. So business is business, and we all fight hard for the same thing, of having a successsul business. At the end of the day, we all have family dinner and we all eat together and spend time together.
So my dad and I my dad was my best man in my wedding, right? But that doesn't mean that we didn't have a lot of times where it was because you have two alpha guys that are just
when you have people going for the same thing, it's they're so focused on, even if it's the same thing, they're both so focused, you're both going for the same thing, you can't even see if the other person's on your side. But
absolutely. Well, I guess you just have two ways. You guys are trying to get the same endpoint, but you just have kind of two ways of getting there, right? And I think that's, once I got old enough to realize that, my dad and I wanted the same thing, but we were just we had two very different ways of getting there.
Right.
I think that was like then the aha moment was like, oh, okay, like actually we actually probably are more alike than we are similar. And then now as I get older, I'm like, God, that's what my dad used to do. Like I'm doing the same shit that he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, handling, how you handle yourself around other people and dealing with other people, that's a huge part of business. And, I'm learning still and it's important to try to, work out with other people and I mean, a lot of the time, like you said, you're going for the same thing, just different ways. And sometimes it's best just kind of let that person do their thing and just watch and go, all right, maybe that did actually work just fine.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, I mean, it goes, it's for all aspects, not only like you're arguing about a business concept, but for processing scrap, you're like, oh, we've done this for 20 years like this. Like, had you been like, oh, we don't need a shear, we're cutting with a torch for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then you get a shear and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually really great. And it's like, but if you didn't have that person who's, trying something new, you would never get that growth. So, I mean, that's the important part.
So speaking of like, okay, like innovation, like pushing to the next thing, like what have you walked around the show today yet?
Yeah, a little bit.
So have you seen anything that like pops out that like looked interesting to you that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to take a harder look at that, like, because you're of the generation that's like, what's the next thing to try and build the business, right? Like to put your stamp on it, right? I would assume, and.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't made it around too much to all the little booths and stuff. Most of the stuff, so I was at, Genesis was kind enough to bring me out to National Demo Association show this year, and I was at Scrap Expo earlier this year. And so I've seen like a lot of the booths kind of pop up similar.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of the similar things. The rail breaker is, I was excited to see that.
Do you guys break a lot of rail there?
We don't, but it's still, I like machinery and I find that interesting.
Yeah, I'm kind of a junkie myself. Like
machinery.
Yeah, I'm this, and now I'm probably like different than you, like in the fact that you're like a true like operator, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm probably not that great of an operator, but I know the value that it adds. Like, so that's probably what gets me the most excited is like, like
knowing the capability,
knowing that what that could do for my business, right? So then that's what gets me excited. Is like, oh, if I could just add that here, man, it would make this process so much better or whatever. Like that's probably what gets me the most excited about it. But my dad is a true like equipment junkie, but as from an operator standpoint, he's like, what's that weigh? What does it do? What's the pressure of that? Like, how does this do this? So, he's a lot more probably technical.
Yeah, that's how my dad is.
Yeah, and I'm more like, man, if I had that, I could do this and this, and we could make that happen.
Yeah, so. I enjoy the technical specs of things, but also like you said, from an operator standpoint, like used to running 995. That's a pretty large shear.
That's
some
a big
serious
shear.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so running big equipment like that, it's enjoyable. Different things like that's cool.
So out of all the things like that you do in a day, like what do you enjoy the most about your job?
That's a good question. I like when we get different things. I like when we get weird old equipment that we have to cut up, and you kind of learn something new with the shear of how to use that tool.
Yeah.
And I like running magnets. I like running our 850s. They're quick machines. They're enjoyable to operate. But yeah, I don't know. It's nice coming into work. Obviously, work is work, and there's certain days when you're like, same thing over and over. But at the end of the day, it's nice coming into, a group of guys who I can pretty much call family, and going to the scale house. My sister's in there. My brother's, running a part of an equipment that I'm running the same operation as him, and my dad or whatever, and that's nice. That's a big deal. I call my grandpa. He'll come over for lunch or whatever, and go out to lunch with him with some people, and even though my grandpa, man, I hope I don't say this wrong. I think he's I don't know how old he is, 82 maybe, 83. But he still gets up every morning, goes and gets breakfast, goes out to lunch with our people, and he still loves breathes, lives.
He's like in it. He's still in it. Yeah. Dude, like for all the headaches sometimes that like being part of a family business like can bring, like there's no doubt about it. When I was growing up, my grandfather, my grandmother ran the scale, my mom, my dad, my aunts, uncle, like everybody was involved. Now I'm at the point where it's just like me and a bunch of my friends that I've hired over the years, and we just became great friends, right? So that's what I love about it is I get to basically work with all the guys that I enjoy probably their company as much as anybody else on,
Right.
you know.
It's like a second family.
It's like,
Right.
I love it, man. That's probably like the best.
Right.
That's the best part of it. So.
Right. Yeah, it makes it tough, like you said. Like you know, there's tense moments when everybody's trying to. Everyone really has the same purpose and same idea of like really trying to do things properly, and you get moments of frustration, but
Yeah.
you work through it. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy being able to do different things, every day and doing that kind of stuff. Sometimes you get jobs that are kind of doing, sorting a pile for a couple hours or whatever, but overall it's pretty good.
Dude, we'll wrap this thing up, man. But one thing I want people to know, and I went to college, right? But you don't have to go to formal education to be successful in our business.
No.
Like, there's a zillion different career lines in our business. Ah, thank you, sir. You're welcome.
See how good service is at
Yeah,
Genesis?
exactly.
That's right.
That's like a shameless plug for Matt. You know the deal. So I want to know. I want people to know, like, if you want to go to college, go to college.
Right.
If you don't want to go, don't go, and don't think that cancels you out. If anything, it probably gives you an inherent advantage because you can start 4 or 5 years earlier and start learning how to do shit, right? So for the young people out there, like in this industry or thinking about it or like taking a look at it, I mean, whether you're operating equipment, working behind the scenes as a buyer, working behind the scenes as an accountant, whatever that is, like there is like a tremendous amount of opportunity, whether it's compliance, insurance, banking. I mean, there's so many things behind the scenes of our industry that I probably don't meet the day-to-day eye. Obviously, we're an equipment booth, but there's a lot more to it as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in scrap, and yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, not only our industry. There's a lot of industries, now that you can go to school, or you can kind of get your way there without school necessarily. I mean, the important part is you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, and have motivation to do it. And I think if you do that, I think I'd like to think that you can get to where you're trying to go with that, and that's a big deal. You keep pushing for something, you'll eventually get there. But yeah,
I love it. That's the way to end it, man, right there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's possible. 4 generations possible. Young people, like in our industry, like, it's possible. And I think that's the biggest thing I want to convey is like, man, we're prime. Like our industry is primed for
plenty of opportunity and scrap.
For opportunity for this. If you decide you don't want that tech job, like, come find us. Like, we're out there. So
yeah. Well, thank you for having me on here.
Appreciate
if you're ever in Cleveland, definitely actually come to Cleveland.
I'm gonna come find you.
Come to
Trust
Cleveland.
me, I'll come find you.
Yeah. Thank you to Genesis for having me out here. And if you ever have something weird to scrap in Cleveland, Ohio, Northern Ohio Scrap is who you call. That's the big thing.
Thank you, Genesis. Yeah. Take care.